This is a perfect example of an album having all the right elements and still not necessarily being able to connect. And I'll explain why in my full review, so let's get into it. The Architect by eMolicule. So eMolicule is a little bit of a side project-ish from Sound of Contact, and Sound of Contact was this really interesting outfit, predominantly from Simon Collins, the son of legendary drummer and vocalist and pop star, and just all-around great guy, Phil Collins, as well as Kelly Nordstrom. And the two of them kind of met in Sound of Contact, and then kind of broke off from them. And if you can believe it, it's been a full decade since single release from Sound of Contact came out. And I really loved Sound of Contact. You know, it was this really interesting new take on retro prog. It had a little bit more of like a modern flair and a modern edge to it. But at the end of the day, as much as I loved it, I don't really return to it as much as I was hoping to. It didn't really age as well as I was hoping, and I just kind of put it on the shelf and never really like came back to it. I would think about it every once in a while and being like, yeah, that Simon Collins record with Kelly was really interesting, but you know, I never really returned to it. So when I heard that eMolicule was kind of their kind of side project, their little brain trust, I got excited, you know, because I'll consume anything new from Sound of Contact, even though this is a completely new entity, and it really is a completely new entity. Like, even though it's still the same two fellas from that band, this album is a lot darker, a lot heavier. It's big. It's got this really interesting production sound to it as well. There's a lot more like electronic sounds going on here. Loving the luscious keyboards and almost like Hammond organ sounds that are on here. Yeah, the programming and production side of things really utilize the craft of the production kit to their full advantage. But I don't know, like there's just something about this album that really, it's almost feeling as though it's water being held in my hand. Like, this album came out back in February and I've had it since January. So I've had it for 3 full months. And I don't know, there's something about it that just doesn't really beg for me to listen to it again. You know, I had my handful of listens and I really enjoyed those listens, but there wasn't anything really to entice me back. And I think part of that might be the length. You know, it's 11 tracks over, well over an hour worth of music. So, you know, it takes quite a bit of time for me to really, really get into it. The album also opens up with the title track that's, the longest track into 10 minutes. And I feel like starting the album off with this big punch, instead of leaving it later on into the album and kind of saving it for later, kind of works to its disadvantage because, you know, the big track starts everything off and I'm really liking the presentation. I'm loving the ebb and flow. I'm loving the groove. I'm loving the energy. But after that, like, it's a big race to the finish line. So instead of kind of taking a breath and then going into a bigger epic after that, it just kind of continues that energy without really deviating too far from the mean, which can make a little bit of a jumbled listen. It could be a lot of like the same sandwich over and over and over again. And by the, 7th, 8th track, I'm kind of full. Like, I'm kind of done. I'm kind of like looking for something different to kind of really sink my teeth into. And so by the ending, I'm just kind of like, I don't want to say exhausted, but I do feel a little exhausted by the end of it. And I'm just like, well, I don't know if I really want to run that race again. That being said, the musicianship from Kelly, the musicianship from Simon are absolutely astounding. Like, the sounds that they're putting down, the essence, the musicianship is absolutely outstanding. I'm loving the drive. I'm loving the energy. The proficiency of these boys' craft is outdone by none. And, I'm blown away that I'm really listening to two guys. There's a lot of programming going on behind the scenes, but really it's just at the end of the day, two guys that are really playing it out on this. So that I really want to applaud and I really want to, celebrate. I just really wish that there was something a little bit more substantial to this. I wish that there was a little bit more touchstones on this. Like, the ending track of The Moment of Truth was really interesting, and I really did enjoy that one. And the other one that does stick out in my head, I will admit, is Mastermind. I really like the drive and the flow of that track. eMolicule, The Architect, and Mastermind. You know, those are the big tracks on here, and it's just a shame that they're all kind of front loaded on this album so that by the end of this album, I don't really have too much else to say about it. You know, there's still enough on here that I would probably recommend it if you're looking for something with a lot of drive, a lot of creative prowess on this by two musicians that are masters of their craft. You can't get much better than this, but I do wish that there was just a little bit more stay power and there was something on here that made me want to come back to it, because that was the hardest part, was coming back to this album. In the end, I will at least say, as my final rating, The Architect by eMolicule is still one that I would absolutely stream, but it wouldn't necessarily be one that I would invest too much into, you know, which is, it's so hard for me to say because I know this is, you know, a new band and I want to support new bands, but I also have to be honest. This is just kind of how I felt about this album. Yeah, it was a great time while I was in it, but once I stopped being in it, you know, it kind of left my brain. So that's what I've got. That's what I've got for eMolicule's debut album, The Architect. I'm looking forward to whatever they have out next. You know, at least I can say that. Whatever they put out next, I'll be excited to listen to. But yeah, that's what I've got. What did you guys think about this album? It's been out for quite a while now, so let me know about your own thoughts, if you loved it, if you hated it, by commenting down below. And yeah, that's what I've got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.